Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's TIAC member talk. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment and acknowledge the importance of the land, which we all call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their culture. I would also like to pause and share our sympathy and support following last week's tragic and horrific discovery of the mass grave of Indigenous children. As the President and CEO of the Tourism Industry Association of Canada, I offer our commitment to change. It is time. The Inuit, Métis, and First Nations peoples are the foundation of our country. We need to honor them, their traditions, and their beliefs. In Canada, we honor and respect two languages. We lead a way of life that we and our ancestors brought with us from our countries of origin. But as Canadians, we also need to honor the languages and the cultures that came before us. In everything we do, we need to remember the history of our nation and the people who lived here first. We need to incorporate their traditions, their lessons, and their point of view in all we do. In the tourism world, we need to stop thinking of Indigenous tourism as a niche market. We need to honor the people that walked here first, the stories that defined their way of life, and the lessons we can learn from them about caring for Mother Earth. As we remember the children, as we work to be more inclusive, as we go forward, TIAC is committing to learn more from our Indigenous cousins, and we will work to include Indigenous traditions and teachings in our work. Again, thank you for joining us today and being engaged in our efforts. Now we have a special guest speaker here today. However, before I make the introductions, I wanted to share the details on our new national campaign that launched today called Open the US-Canada Border. Just hours ago, we held an in-person press conference in downtown Toronto, as well as an online event with our provincial and territorial partners. As you know, the US-Canada border has been closed since March of 2020. With more and more people getting vaccinated in both countries and things looking like they're going to return to normal, it's time to start planning for the reopening of the border so our businesses can plan to get back to work. TIAC is asking the government to take urgent action on this issue so that Canadian tourism operators and businesses can have the time they need to retrain, rehire, and market. Many rely on advanced bookings, and without a clear plan for reopening and a commitment to when it will happen, people are uncertain as to whether or not they can book activities in Canada at any date in the future. As members of TIAC, I ask you to support our efforts by visiting the openuscanborder.ca site and send your letter of support to your MP. The letter is already written. All you need to do is input your address and it will identify your MP and populate the message. You can preview the letter and accept the privacy and terms of use and send it. Why are we doing this now? We have been working behind the scenes with government officials for the past 15 months on this initiative. With recent scientific reports and evidence, we believe that now is the time to be transparent with a phased reopening approach based on science. We are asking the government to work collaboratively at all levels and give industry a date to work towards. I am pleased to answer any questions on this new campaign at the end of this presentation. I want to thank you all for your support. Now, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, and you're going to see me disappear for a few minutes because I'm going to go and do a media interview on your behalf about this whole initiative of getting the border open. But I'll be back. So I'm going to leave you in very capable hands with the TIAC team and with our special guest, Angela Nagy. Angela is the Chief Executive Officer with Green Step Solutions, a valued member and partner of TIAC. Green Step was founded in 2008 to help small to medium-sized enterprises measure and reduce their environmental impacts and create a sustainability strategy for the future. To date, the organization has worked with more than 3,000 businesses and organizations of all sizes in a variety of industries such as tourism and hospitality, retail, professional services, and manufacturing. Angela approached TIAC about a new national initiative late last year, and we are pleased to have her here today to talk about how you can access this new initiative and benefit from it. Before I pass the floor to Angela, just a bit of housekeeping. First, this session is being presented in English. As I mentioned during our last webinar, we are still investigating affordable options for translation. Second, a question and answer session following Angela's presentation will take place. You can ask your questions in two ways. Either type them into the Q&A box or raise your hand. To raise your hand, click on the icon labeled participants at the bottom of your screen, right there in the center. At the bottom of the window, click the button labeled Raise Hand. When we see your hand raised, we will unmic you and turn on your video. And then we'd ask you to please introduce yourself, your business, and share your questions or comments. And we welcome questions in both official languages. Finally, as I said earlier, I'm just going to jump off the call for a few minutes to do a brief media interview. I will be live with Amanda Lang on BNN to discuss border reopening and the impacts on your business. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Angela. Angela, thank you so much for being here, and the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Beth, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I am going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will get started. All right, I'm just ensuring that we can see the presentation and the cover slide. Okay, wonderful. Well, first of all, I just wanted to offer a big thank you to the Tourism Industry Association of Canada, Beth and your team, for helping to launch this pledge in Canada and make this really important announcement with us at Green Step. And I also wanted to acknowledge that I am speaking to you today from the traditional and unceded territory of the Silks First Nation in Kelowna, British Columbia. And really excited to share with you today the details of the Sustainable Tourism 2030 pledge that we have launched for the national tourism industry and ultimately the global tourism industry. As a result of the global pandemic, as we all know, tourism is forever changed. But what if sustainability can be leveraged as a strategy to speed our collective recovery while at the same time rebuilding the industry in a more competitive yet thoughtful and responsible manner? And through the pledge, we are aiming to help the industry to do just that. First, I'll give you a little bit of background on who's behind the pledge. As Beth introduced, Green Step Solutions is the company I founded in 2008. We've worked with more than 3,000 businesses and offer a range of tools and services to help the tourism industry and other types of businesses to improve their sustainability performance. We have been a certified B Corporation since 2015. So we really try to walk the talk. We're also Bullfrog powered with 100% low impact renewable Canadian energy, and we are carbon neutral and offset our carbon emissions and our carbon footprint each year with offsetters. And after working with more than 3,000 businesses since 2008, we have really come to learn what the top 3 barriers to sustainable tourism are. Time and time again, we hear from businesses that we really want to do the right thing, but we don't have the time to figure it all out. We think there might be a big cost barrier, or it seems like it's just going to cost a lot of money, and we really don't know where to start. And we have wanted to help the industry to tackle these key challenges, and the pledge really addresses that. On the flip side, we also know that there's a very strong business case for sustainability, and that business case can be broken down into a few key areas. And this is sort of like a profit and loss sheet, if you will, or an income statement. And on the top, we have our revenue lines, and then below that we have our cost lines. And what we know from research, and a lot of this research comes from a Canadian author named Bob Willard, who's written several books, one of which is called The New Sustainability Advantage. I would really encourage you to do some research into Bob, perhaps pick up one of his books. But he has done this research that's identified that through sustainability, there is a significant opportunity to improve profitability. And when it's done so strategically, you can often tackle those low hanging fruit pieces first that allow you to save money, reduce your costs, and ultimately invest those savings into additional initiatives over time. So on the top line, we have increased revenue from attracting new markets or introducing new products that may be related to sustainability in some way, shape, or form. And on the bottom line, we have a number of cost reductions. Reduced energy is one of the key areas. That, of course, is related to environmental sustainability and reduced carbon footprint. We have reduced waste, so materials coming into a business, whether that's food, single-use items. I know with COVID, that's a challenge right now, but all of those things can add costs and are areas where we can identify some significant savings. And then on the employee side, a lot of research identifies that employees who feel really connected with the values of their employers want to come and work for you, so attracting that top talent. They also stay longer and they're more productive. So in an industry where we have a lot of challenges with attracting and retaining top talent and really all types of staff at every level of the organization, communicating sustainability commitments and engaging staff around those initiatives can be really a key strategy. And at the end of the day, when done strategically over a period of time, this doesn't happen overnight, but over a 5 to 7 year period, it's been identified that those organizations that do it right are able to improve their profitability in the range of 50 to 80%, which is significant. On the flip side of that, organizations who ignore these important areas, when we think about rising energy costs, carbon taxes going up, a more discerning traveler and consumer that's looking for more responsible business, we have the risk of decreased profits in the next 5 to 7 years. So a little bit of a taste of the business case for sustainability and one of the drivers behind the pledge and behind the work that we do. What people are saying. So the research, I've been following this for about 20 years now, the research around the demand for sustainability in general. In the tourism sector, it's no different. Booking.com released their findings early last year that identified that 87% of all tourists want more sustainable travel options. National Geographic identified 42% of US consumers remarked that sustainable travel decisions are a priority. And Deloitte, in a report they published a few years ago, identified that sustainability would become a defining issue for the tourism and hospitality industry. Now, we know that guests aren't necessarily typing in green hotel or sustainable travel, but when organizations are able to communicate those values and the pieces that identify that you care about things beyond your own business, whether that's culture or nature or the environment or people, those pieces of information can resonate with guests at a values level, at an emotional level, and can help them make decisions about whether to come to your destination or whether to come to your business. So why a pledge? Well, we really wanted to tackle those 3 barriers that I identified earlier: time, budget, and knowledge. And ultimately, the purpose of the pledge is for tourism businesses and destinations to be able to measure and improve their economic, social, environmental, and cultural performance over time. The criteria that we use are aligned with or recognized by the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. They're aligned with the UN World Tourism Organization indicators for sustainable tourism destinations, and both of those align directly with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And the criteria that we use and the concept around the pledge is to provide an assessment framework that helps you, destinations, and tourism businesses to identify gaps and opportunities that can then be useful for setting goals and creating strategic plans. So you can see where you're performing well, you can see where you have room for growth and opportunity to improve, and you can use that data and that information to generate your own internal plans. And ultimately, by creating a pledge that doesn't cost any money, we're simplifying the steps and removing that cost barrier or some of that perceived cost barrier up front to creating a common framework and benchmarking for the global tourism industry. We are also, and I'll talk to this a little bit, but providing integration tools specifically for tourism destinations to help you offer the pledge to the stakeholders within your destinations, as well as training and workshops to go along with that. So how to take the pledge? There are 3 key steps, and I'll go through a few slides and then I'll actually show you the pledge website if you haven't seen it already, and the assessment platform to give you an idea of what it really looks like in action. So the first step to taking the Sustainable Tourism Pledge is to complete the pledge form that you can find at sustainabletourism2030.com/pledge. By taking the pledge, you commit to 2 simple actions. One is measuring your sustainability score using our free online assessment, which is based on the Global Sustainable Tourism Council criteria. And the second is that you make a public commitment to improve your sustainability score that results from that online assessment between now and 2030. And our goal is that you will continue to reassess your performance year over year. We'll provide some reminders and some information and some nurturing to help you continue on your sustainability journey over time, and offer some new resources as they're developed over time. To give you an idea of what that sustainability score looks like, it's a little bit different. The criteria for tourism destinations is different from the criteria for tourism businesses, but ultimately the scorecard will look the same. So this is a summarized version. On the next slide, I'll show you the full version, but it will show you how you have scored, how many points you've earned in each of the categories that the criteria are broken down into: management, social and economic impacts, natural and cultural interactions, and environmental impacts. Those categories are the same for both tourism businesses and tourism destinations. It will show you how many points you earned, how many points were available for those particular criteria, and how you scored based on that. Some of the criteria are weighted differently than others based on best practice for improving sustainability performance in the tourism sector. For each of those sections, so for example, under the management section, you'll then be able to expand out and see in each of the subcategories how you've done. Each subcategory has multiple questions underneath it, and you'll be able to refer back to those in the assessment to see how you've answered and to see which questions you haven't answered or you hadn't identified as things that you were doing as a way to help you build out your action plan and ultimately work towards improving your sustainability performance. That public commitment piece, once you've done the assessment, and the idea is that you'll take the assessment, you'll see how you've scored, and then you'll see also where you have some room to improve your score, perhaps targeting increasing your score in a particular area that you're already doing well and you really want to nail that particular area, or focusing on areas where you really haven't performed well and you've identified in your own organization that those are priorities. There's not really a prescription for what things you should be focusing on. Ultimately, the criteria offers a way of looking at your business through a sustainability lens, or looking at your destination through a sustainability lens. And then you can prioritize, ideally based on your existing business plans if you're a business, or your destination development plans and strategies if you're a destination. You can begin tying in, what have we said we already want to do in the next 5 or 10 years, and what are the indicators that will help us measure whether or not we're actually working towards achieving those goals. Some of the examples in the commitment could include things like supporting local entrepreneurs in the community by developing a sustainable purchasing policy that prioritizes local procurement. It could include partnering with local natural and cultural heritage organizations or sites to promote the unique cultural and natural heritage of your destination. Conducting an accessibility and inclusivity audit to ensure we meet the needs of visitors, of all visitors. Measuring energy consumption and identifying ways to improve your energy efficiency, lower costs and reduce your carbon footprint, or to take that one step further and signing on to Tourism Declares and developing a climate action plan. So these are just suggestions. Again, it's really up to you to decide what's important to your organization and what commitments you would like to make. And then again, year over year, you can use the assessment as a way of measuring how you've been able to improve your sustainability score and ultimately your sustainability performance over time. Some of the pieces that we'll be adding is Sustainable Tourism 2030 Pledge Guidebook, just walking through each of these steps in a little bit more detail. We took the Pledge Marketing Toolkit. So once you've taken the pledge, you've done your assessment and you've published your commitment, we'll ask you to send us a link to where that commitment is, and then we'll post a listing of your organization on the website with a link back to that sustainability pledge. So it's great for SEO, and it's also a way to show leadership and to demonstrate that this is really a movement of the tourism industry to advance our overall sustainability performance. The final piece that's coming is the Destination 2030 dashboard. And what we will be able to do with this is, once we have a number of tourism businesses and destinations across Canada and globally who have taken the pledge, we'll be able to do a few things. Benchmarking, so your organization can see how you compare to other organizations that have also taken the online assessment, and that can provide some great motivation to improve your score or to maintain a high score. The other thing that we'll be able to do is anonymously aggregate the data. So we won't be identifying any one particular business, but we will be able to do things like a state of the industry report for Canada, or working with a destination to help you understand the state of the industry within your geographic region for organizations that have taken the pledge. So we're really excited to be working on that. That's our next stage of development with our software team. So stay tuned. We hope to be announcing that in the fall of this year. And now I'd love to take you on a quick little tour. The website just has a few pages. So the homepage is where you can find the language of the pledge, the 3 steps that we've just reviewed. It's very simple to sign it on to take the pledge. We'll then send you an email with a link to set up your online account for the Sustainable Tourism Assessment. There is a bit of guidance on the site as well. And again, we'll be posting the pledge guide soon, as well as the marketing toolkit soon, and then an example of what a public commitment could look like. And if you want more information about that, you could look at some of the organizations, businesses, and destinations who have already taken the pledge. They've done their online assessment and they've posted their public commitment. So just to give you an example of Echo Valley Ranch and Spa, they were the first to complete the 2 actions required. We just launched last week, so of course we expect more to be coming through, but they've got a full page that's dedicated to their commitment to sustainability. So they have a number of things that they've committed to, so that can hopefully give you some inspiration as more organizations take the pledge and we list them on the site. And just a little bit of background information about the purpose of the pledge. I think for many organizations, the pledge guide might be useful if you're bringing this back into your organization or to your management team to review if this is something that you would like to do with your organization. Once you create that online profile and the online account for the Sustainable Tourism application, you will land on the page that looks like this. It gives you a bit of information, and then you simply launch the assessment. So this is the online assessment for a tourism business. Again, the questions for a destination will be slightly different, but you work through each of the questions, identify how you're doing in each section. It saves automatically, so once you've checked a box, it will save. There is also a log out button. You can log out and log back in anytime. Just please make a note to take note of your username and password, or use something memorable so that you're able to get back in again. Once you've submitted, once you're finished, the environmental impacts is the last section. You can submit the assessment. Once you've submitted the assessment, you can go to the reports tab, and this is where you'll be able to see the results of how you have submitted your assessment. When the benchmarking information is available, we'll be adding another column to this reporting page where you'll see what the average score has been in each of the categories and subcategories for other entities that have taken the assessment. So I'll just dive back into the presentation now and just review what the criteria look like and about how much time you could expect if you go through it fairly quickly. So the operator criteria and the destination criteria, as mentioned previously, both have 4 sections: the management, social and economic, natural and cultural, and environment. The operator criteria has 87 questions, and it has been formally and officially recognized by the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. So we have gone through a process of submitting the criteria and paying a fee to have their technical team review it to ensure that it lines up very specifically with each of the GSTC criteria for tour operators and accommodation providers. However, we've designed the criteria to be usable by any type of tourism business, and we've used our criteria to assess everything from visitor centers to wineries to whale watching tour operators to hotels. So there's a wide range of organizations that can use the criteria. It is designed to be relevant to all types of businesses. I will make a note that there are some things, because we're aligning with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council and because it addresses all of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, there are some things that we're lucky enough to be able to take for granted in Canada, things like enforcement of laws around labor rights, as an example. Because it's a globally relevant criteria, some countries don't have the same luxuries as we do when it comes to policies to protect people and wildlife. So just note that those are some of the easy ones that you'll be able to check off. And what we recommend is that you take a conservative approach when you're doing the assessment. So if you're not sure of an answer, choose the lower option. So just an example, on the environmental side, we might ask what percentage of your light bulbs are LEDs, and we give a few different ranges. So perhaps choosing the one that's a bit more conservative. It is a benchmark for you to use in your organization to help you improve your sustainability performance. So nobody benefits if you exaggerate the claims. It's really a tool just for you. We're not recommending that you publish the score anywhere. It's an unverified score. It is a benchmark just for your internal use. And if you go through it fairly quickly, taking your best guess or your conservative estimate, it should take about an hour to blast through the criteria. Larger organizations may need a couple of people involved in order to do that. But again, you can save and come back to it at any time and share your login information with other team members. The destination criteria, because it's definitely more comprehensive for a whole destination, there are more questions, 117 questions. It is GSTC aligned, so we've designed the criteria based on the Global Sustainable Tourism Council criteria, and we'll be submitting that for formal recognition through that process. Our goal is by July of this year, with the hope that we will have a GSTC recognized criteria for destinations by the fall of this year. We estimate that will take, again, going through it quickly, using your best guess. If you don't measure something, you can simply say, we don't track this. That will take you about 2 hours to complete. One suggestion is that perhaps you go through it section by section to break it into some manageable chunks and then have that useful results in order to help you to measure your performance. As mentioned, the destination dashboard will allow us to anonymously aggregate the scores of organizations, whether it's DMOs or tourism businesses within a destination that have taken the assessment, to provide that data up to a destination level, whether that's a local destination or regional, provincial, or national. My ultimate goal is to be able to share this data in an anonymously aggregated way in things like state of the tourism industry reports, so that we can really see how are we doing in Canada when it comes to a number of key sustainability metrics and indicators. But we will follow privacy laws. Nobody's individual data will be shared outside of our organization unless you ask us to do that. Ultimately, following the typical cycle of sustainability management systems, and you'll see that's the first section of the criteria is the management system. And we really look at to what extent are you measuring and monitoring a number of things when it comes to sustainability. So we encourage you to follow this cycle. So assessing your performance and establishing your baseline, that's ultimately what you'll do by taking the online assessment. From that, once you have your results, you can set some clear goals for your organization. So making them SMART, you want to have them time bound, you want to have them realistic, you want to have them measurable. So for example, we want to, let's say, reduce our carbon footprint by 30% by 2030, and then identifying who's really owning that goal and what are the specific actions underneath that goal that are going to allow you to achieve it. Many of the actions, you could use the criteria in order to define specifically some of the actions that will help you to improve your performance in each of the sections and subsections. From there, monitoring and measuring your impacts and results. So by retaking the assessment at least on an annual basis, you'll be able to see how you're improving your score, hopefully. And then our goal would be that people begin publicly reporting on your accomplishments. So if you've put your commitment online and you've said you've got some goals to do certain things by certain dates, that best practice would suggest that you update that on at least an annual basis to share how are you actually doing, how are you progressing towards your stated goals. That's the, ultimately the basis of an annual report or an annual sustainability report. Not that you need to go to something that detailed, but even just a simple page on your site that you're communicating your progress towards your goals, communicating that out to stakeholders, and finding ways with your marketing team to message those things to help you share with your guests and your prospective guests that you care, and again, connecting with them on that values and emotional level. Ultimately, by doing all of these things, you'll begin to build the tools and begin to make progress towards achieving your goals, reducing your environmental footprint and improving your positive impacts in other areas related to social and cultural and economic impacts, saving money, winning awards, and securing RFPs. So having a strong sustainability strategy and being able to articulate the things that you're doing well are going to help you in all of these areas. And then repeating that. So kind of coming up with a cyclical approach to this, and annually would be the most common time frame to reassess and reevaluate. But in a perfect world, you're able to start communicating about these goals and actions in your regular meetings. We always suggest you don't need to put sustainability in a silo, just start weaving it into your existing team meetings or leadership meetings, management meetings, and talking about how are we doing when it comes to some of these sustainability goals, perhaps tying economic indicators to those as well to make them more relevant to your organization. And that is the sustainable tourism framework in a nutshell, and that is the Sustainable Tourism Pledge in a nutshell as well, and happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Angela. That great presentation. While I did have to step out, I was, I'm very familiar with the work that Angela is doing because of the partnership that TIAC has with Green Step. So at that, I'm going to open the floor to questions. And I know we already have one in the Q&A, so I'm going to start there. But please feel free to use the Q&A tool or raise your hand, and we'll be happy to engage with you. So the first question comes from Minto Schneider. She says, and this is directed to you, Angela, she said, we've given up our office space. How do we respond as a destination organization with respect to facilities?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think when we originally worked with Minto on doing an assessment, we used our business criteria and really which looked a lot at the physical structure of their space. The destination criteria that we've since released, it does ask a few questions about physical space. You could respond to them in whichever way you feel appropriate. So if you're predominantly in home offices, that will dictate how you're answering those questions. But the destination criteria now is going to ask a lot of other questions around destination management, culture, natural heritage environment, more from an engagement of stakeholders, engagement with different levels of government. So I think you'll find that it will be much more relevant to you as a destination than the previous operator criteria was.
Great. Okay. I will just also share a message with you from Danielle Timmons, who says, excellent presentation. We will be taking the pledge and doing the assessment. So thank you, Danielle. Now we have someone who has their hand raised. Liz Smaha has raised her hand, and I'm hoping that the team can turn off her mic and turn on her video and we can hear her question. There we go.
While we wait for that, maybe I can address one more question that popped up in the Q&A.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think, yeah, the question was from Simon, is the pledge open to every business or only to TIAC members? It is open to any business, although we're letting TIAC members hear it first. So it is open to any tourism business or destination.
Great. Now I see that Liz has unmuted herself. So Liz, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
I'd really love it if I had a question, but I do apologize. I'm not sure how my hand got raised. I'm using my phone, so I do apologize for that. But it was a very awesome presentation. So while I do have the floor, I will say thank you very much. That was really interesting.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
All right. Any other questions? No? And at this point, I'll suggest too that we can ask questions for Angela or for TIAC. Isabel, bonjour Isabel. Isabel says, great initiative, Angela and Beth. The industry really needed a national vision and framework to advance sustainable and responsible practices. Happy to help in any way to reach out to the Francophone community in Ontario.
Wonderful. Well, we will follow up with you, Isabel. I know that we've been working on some translation with you, so we'll circle back now that we've got the pledge launched. So thank you.
Fantastic.
It looks like you might have a question there, Beth, in the Q&A from Danielle too.
I don't see any other questions.
Okay.
Is there another question there? I don't.
Well, I can, yeah, it says since
here, yeah, we got one.
Okay.
Question, okay, so this is about the initiative we launched today, wondering that since there has been increased discussions about federal border reopenings, do you think this means that the CEWS and CERS will definitely be stopped after September and reduced after June, even for the hardest hit sectors like cruise? So again, this is a great question, and it's something that we continue to speak with government about. At this time, government has not made a commitment to extend the existing levels of CEWS and CERS. They have extended the program both programs until September, and there is that option of extending it again into November. We will continue to work on behalf of businesses that are continued to be hampered and not open because of restrictions like the cruise industry. And we'll keep our members up to date and informed. But at this point, we don't have any indication that that there's been a change of heart on behalf of the federal government. Any other questions? Okay, well, I don't want to belabor the point. I do want to say thank you to Angela very much for taking the time to walk everybody through your presentation and through this new program. Excuse me. I think it's very worthwhile, and I really hope that that you see a big uptake from TIAC members as they look to incorporate, new practices in the way that they deliver their businesses to be more sustainable going forward.
Yes, thank you, Beth.
Sorry, one more question. Trevor Benson just said, not a question, just a note of thanks to Angela and TIAC. Really great presentation and such an important initiative at this time. Here's to seeing Canada flourish as a responsible destination in the years to come, on and up. And Corinne also says, thank you, very interesting. Will the presentation be made available afterwards? And yes, we will make that available to everyone. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in, for participating, and for being engaged members with TIAC. We are here working on your behalf, and so it is so great to be able to have an opportunity to speak with you, to engage with you on a regular basis, and to have discussions about important subjects that impact your businesses, like green initiatives and the Sustainable Tourism Pledge. So, Angela, again, thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will see you again next month for the next member talk. All right, have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.